We didn't get invited to Media Row this year. That's okay. We're going to still talk about all the news going on around the Super Bowl and the NFL up next here on No Buts About It. Welcome, everyone, to No Buts About It. My name is Josh Butts, and today we're going to be discussing some of the news, fun highlights around the Super Bowl, and we'll also, of course, be discussing the Super Bowl that is this Sunday against the Patriots against the Seattle Seahawks. Nope, your Vikings are not in it this time, Chris. That's okay, though. My Bengals are also not in it. We can suffer together. First of all, though, before we get started, I want to start on a little bit of a sad note. Washington Redskins and Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame quarterback Sonny Jurgensen passed away at the age of 91 today. He was, for those who don't know or don't study the history of the game, the forward pass was not always a part of it. In fact, there were points where it was illegal or at least highly restricted. And Sonny Jurgensen was one of the first, if not the first, major forward pass player who really kind of helped elevate the game to that level. This was also in the era where he was also like a punter and a receiver and, the kicker. And he did everything. But he passed away, age of 91, Hall of Fame quarterback. So shout out to a life well lived and prayers to the Jurgensen family as they go through this difficult time. Let's see, what does Chris say? Bengals suck. I think we had the same or if not better record than you guys. And you lost your quarterback a lot too, but I don't know that was the issue in Minnesota. But we just got done talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback. We're going to talk about the 2026 Hall of Fame class here in a little bit, and we'll discuss who got in, who should have gotten in, and how I would kind of fix the Hall of Fame voting. But also, another thing we've talked about a little bit is defensive coordinator for the Browns, Jim Schwartz, has left. He has put in his letter of resignation against for the Cleveland Browns. I'm also watching Chris here talk about the Vikings. They finished 9-8. Okay, whatever. Anyway, Cleveland Browns finished worse than both of us. And Jim Schwartz was actually a highlight of this team. So much so that it seemed like he was going to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. So much so that when they did interviews, they said, you have to keep Jim Schwartz. We want to keep Jim Schwartz. We need Jim Schwartz. And that caused a lot of big names who were interested in the job to pull themselves out of it. Well, now they've hired Todd Monken, which, I'm not ecstatic about the Todd Monken hire if I'm a Browns fan, but he's experienced in the league. He's been around the league for a while. So you've got that going for you. And he took the job, a job that wasn't necessarily the most favored. However, he also lost Jim Schwartz. And now losing Jim Schwartz is big in itself. My concern now, though, if I'm a Browns fan, is what is the fallout of this going to be? What defensive players are going to request trades? Now, does Myles Garrett do that? I highly doubt it. Myles Garrett is too big. He's on too big of a contract. He probably knows that it's very unlikely that he gets traded anyway. But we could see maybe some defensive backs start requesting trades. Some linebackers who are maybe on some veteran deals, they request a trade. I just am going to be watching the Cleveland Browns very carefully here the next few weeks. Now that we know that Jim Schwartz is officially out of the building, that was a big loss in terms of coaching for the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. And I don't think that necessarily is worth Todd Monken being the head coach. But I know some people don't like his record as a head coach, Jim Schwartz's, but that was 15 years ago. And he also turned the Lions around in his tenure before going, I think it was 11-21. So he had some good, he had some bad, but there are guys who have done way worse that got second chances in the NFL, especially within 2 decades. So I think Jim Schwartz has earned a second chance as a head coach, but Cleveland Brown's going to Cleveland Brown. Let's talk about the 2026 Hall of Fame class. So we've got the 2026 Hall of Fame class. We know who it is. We got Cardinals wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, Carolina Panthers linebacker Luke Kuechly, Chargers and Saints quarterback Drew Brees, who Drew Brees was the last one they announced last night. And I was like, if he is not the final name, this whole thing needs to be blown up. But he got in. Patriots and Colts kicker Adam Vinatieri, and primarily 49ers running back. I believe he also played for the Vikings and the Raiders, Roger Craig. And so I wanted to go through here and discuss each player that got in. But first, I want to say this is a phenomenal class. All these players deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And so I'm not dragging any of these guys at all. I grew up watching 4 of the 5 of these guys. Larry Fitzgerald, loved him. Luke Kuechly, loved him. Drew Brees, loved him. Adam Vinatieri, great memories with him as living in Indiana, Colts fan. We got a fun fact here. Larry Fitzgerald was a Vikings ball boy when the Vikings had Randy Moss and Chris Carter as wide receivers. Hey, those are 2 good names to look up to for sure. So maybe that's why Larry Fitzgerald had such soft hands. But these 5 men all deserve to get in. My issue with the Hall of Fame is that the way they do things is they can elect up to 5 modern and 3 senior. The 3 senior players this year were Roger Craig, L.C. Greenwood, and Ken Anderson. Okay? The 3 snubs, the 3 closest to getting in but didn't quite get in, were guard Marshall Yanda, Terrell Suggs for the Ravens, and, of course, Bengals offensive tackle Willie Anderson. All 3 of those players were on the 2008 Baltimore Ravens, fun fact. And there's this kind of narrative. Then, of course, you have Bill Belichick, who didn't get in. Robert Kraft didn't get in. And you have this narrative that, like, oh, well, Torrey Holt will get in eventually. Reggie Wayne will get in eventually, but we can't let him until we get Torrey Holt in. All these players that we want to get in, but we just can't. We can't because, we're limited on how many people you can get in each year. You didn't let as many people in as you could. You left a spot open. Last year, I think you left, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's entirely possible I'm forgetting someone, but I think you left 4 spots open. So if you want the Hall of Fame to tell the story of football, at some point you have to step in and say, hey, there's guys here that need to be in. We're missing the plot here. Yes, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Drew Brees, Adam Vinatieri, Roger Craig, they all tell the story of football. And we're going to go through each one here in a minute and talk about their accomplishments. But how do you tell the story of football without Torrey Holt? How do you do it without Ken Anderson? How do you not have the right tackle of the Cincinnati Bengals, who went 3 seasons without allowing a sack, only allowed 16 sacks in a 13-season NFL career, went up against 9 of the top 10 pass rushers in NFL history, and he's not in? Willie Anderson not being in is such a tragedy that there are Steelers players saying that Willie Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. There are Steelers coaches saying that Willie Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. Warren Sapp has come out and said that. It's ridiculous. I don't know who's doing these voting, but we have continually seen small market teams get the short end of the stick when it comes to voting for MVP, for Offensive Player of the Year, for the Hall of Fame. And there are some guys who crack that. They do. But Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown Award and didn't receive a single first place Offensive Player of the Year vote a few seasons ago. How does that happen? How is Willie Anderson been a finalist for 5 seasons now and still isn't in the Hall of Fame? It's ridiculous. How was Ken Anderson not just the 1981 NFL MVP, but also the 1981 Offensive Player of the Year? So much so that he was competing statistically with Joe Montana, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And that wasn't just a one-off. Ken Anderson was one of the best quarterbacks in the late 70s, early 80s. Fantastic quarterback. He's probably never going to get in now because of the way stuff is figured out. So what I would do is first of all, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft should not be going up against players. They're completely different to the game. They add completely different things. Bill Belichick, Hall of Fame coach. I think everyone agrees with that. Even if you don't like Bill Belichick, you agree that he's a Hall of Famer. I think you have to. Then you've got Robert Kraft, who's been able to get in for like 14 seasons now, and still isn't in. But he's put together one of the greatest teams. If Jerry Jones is in, Robert Kraft is a Hall of Famer. Like it's simple. But these guys are competing against players like Roger Craig. Roger Craig deserves to be in, but so does Bill Belichick. Why are they competing against each other? They did completely different things. That's stupid. Put coaches and contributors in one column, senior players in another column, and modern era in a different column. And then fill the class. Fill these classes because it's going to continue to happen. Next year, some of the names off the top of my head that are going to be eligible for the first time for the Hall of Fame. Rob Gronkowski, Ben Roethlisberger, Richard Sherman, Antonio Brown. There's probably other big names that I'm forgetting. Andrew Whitworth. Did I say Andrew Whitworth? He's going to be. This logjam is going to continue to happen if we don't do something to fix it. And we're going to miss the story, and there's going to be people lost to history. And I know that the Hall of Fame is an elite club, but it feels like we're also making it so that only players who, won on big teams get in. And we're also only making it so that if you had to have a Super Bowl to win, which, again, people crack that. Larry Fitzgerald and Luke Kuechly never won a Super Bowl. But it's still, I don't know that the voting criteria is necessarily the best here. That's my spiel. Someone from Canton wants to call. Feel free. Let's have a chat. Well, let's go through each of these players that got in because they all do deserve to be highlighted. They played fantastic football in their careers. So just, again, here's the 5 guys who made it in. And now let's just talk about each one. So Larry Fitzgerald, who we recently learned was a ball boy for the Minnesota Vikings when they had Chris Carter and Randy Moss, has been eligible for 1 year. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Congrats. He spent 17 seasons in the NFL. In those 17 seasons, he had 11 Pro Bowls. He made the first team All-Pro 3 times. He finished and is still second in receptions, 1,432, 6th in receiving touchdowns for 121. He was the 2008 Offensive Player of the Year and one of the most prestigious honors in all of football is the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, which he won in 2016. Larry Fitzgerald, he's that guy. He played with some great quarterbacks, Kurt Warner, Carson Palmer, also had some not so great quarterbacks as well. Unfortunately, he never got a Super Bowl victory, but he is fantastic. And there was a stat that I thought was true, but I'm starting to discover that it wasn't true. And that's that Larry Fitzgerald had more tackles than he had drops in his career. I tried to research that, and apparently that's not true, except for there is they kind of find a loophole around it where they say, depending on what your tracking is for drops, then it could be true. But I think it was it's very close still. He had 43 drops or something, I think, and 40 some tackles. But yeah, I don't think that's true. Still a crazy stat that it's even being considered. But Larry Fitzgerald deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Easily. Underrated wide receiver as well. I completely understand that one. And again, I'm not arguing any of these guys shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I'm arguing that we shouldn't be leaving a spot to the side. Adam Vinatieri, kicker for the Colts and the Patriots. He did not. This was a guy who got snubbed last year. Many people thought he was going to be first ballot, but he is a specialist. There's only been one kicker who's been able to get into the Hall of Fame on a first ballot, and Adam Vinatieri is not him. He played in the NFL for 24 seasons, which I am that old. That is my age. He played for my life. Super Bowls. He had 4 of them. 3 with the Patriots, 1 with the Indianapolis Colts. He became known as Mr. Clutch, Iceman. He kicked more field goals than anyone else, quite literally. He's the only player to score 1,000 points for 2 teams. He's also the NFL's all-time scoring leader, scoring 2,673 points. And he also leads for all-time field goals made at 599, which I really wish he hadn't retired before getting that 600. Even if he came back for just week 1 of one season, kicked 600, and then just left, I would be happier that way. But that's just my brain not liking that number. Adam Vinatieri, if a kicker's going to be in the Hall of Fame, it's him. He is the greatest kicker of all time. It's going to be very difficult to beat out Adam Vinatieri. Distance-wise, he's been beaten, of course, and that's Cam Little. He's got that Justin Tucker. But I think the longevity is really what made Adam Vinatieri so great. He was playing he watched entire franchises turn over in his career. He is truly the greatest kicker of all time in terms of clutchness, in terms of longevity, in terms of just like being able to trust him to go out there and make the field goal. I think Adam Vinatieri is that guy. I'm sure there's people who think differently. They can argue with a wall. Next up, Roger Craig. Roger Craig, there's going to be a lot of people who don't know a lot about Roger Craig, and that's because he is, he's the senior candidate. He's not been. A lot of people on social media aren't of the age that Roger Craig played. That being said, the video of him that CBS Sports posted getting the knock is one of the funniest videos I've seen of this situation, because there's like 4 or 5 members of, I assume, the 49ers. It's kind of hard to tell who they are based on the camera. They walk up to the door and Roger Craig rips open the door. He's like, "My buddies are here." And he rips open the door and they're hugging and he's all excited and his family's all excited. And I'm not sure if he knew what was happening or what, but he's high-fiving them, and then they're like, "You're getting into the Hall of Fame." He gets so excited. And part of the reason was because he's been eligible for the last 28 years. He's had to wait 28 years to get into the NFL. He played get into the Hall of Fame. He played 10 seasons. He had 3 Super Bowls, 4 Pro Bowls, and this is where he really kind of makes his money, I think. Because this is something that happens we think it happens all the time, having pass catching running backs, but he was the first player to record 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards in the same season. He did it in 1985. Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey are the only 2 who have done it since. And of course, Marshall Faulk's in the Hall of Fame. Christian McCaffrey, I think, is on his way there. He's also the first player to score, that's supposed to say in a Super Bowl. He's the first player to score 3 touchdowns in a Super Bowl. And he's the 1980s all-decade team running back. So very, very good resume. Kind of looked over for way too long, which he even had those 3 Super Bowls. So it's kind of surprising he was looked over as long as he was. But he was a key weapon for Montana on those Super Bowl teams and really kind of started what we've come to know as the modern day running back, of not just being a weapon in the run game, but also being a weapon in the pass game and being able to, make a difference all across the board, being dynamic. I saw we got a comment here. I still might trust Vinatieri more than some current. Yeah, how old is Adam Vinatieri now? He retired pretty old. He's 53 years old now, but yeah. So Adam Vinatieri, 53 years old, still might trust him more. I don't maybe yeah. Now that I think about it, there are some that I might trust more, but or trust him more than. Let's move on. Next guy up, Luke Kuechly. I loved Luke Kuechly as a kid. I was not a Panthers fan by any means, but Luke Kuechly was a guy who was just so fun to watch. He's up there with like JJ Watt for me. Just players who were hard hitting and fun and amazing. And I just like, oh yeah, just the energy they brought to the field was contagious. Okay. He's another guy who I kind of thought was snubbed last year. But he got in his second year, 8 seasons. 7 of those he made the Pro Bowl. He was the first team All Pro for 5, Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2012. And then he turned around and won Defensive Player of the Year in 2013. He had 18 interceptions, which was the most by a linebacker during his tenure that he played between 2012 and 2019. And he had 1,092 tackles, which was the most by a linebacker during that same time frame. So Luke Kuechly was dominant for the Carolina Panthers. And while the Carolina Panthers weren't necessarily dominant during that entire period that Kuechly played, he was definitely a big part of that team, making the Super Bowl, being competitive in the NFC South. Those Cam Newton teams that we think of, Cam Newton gets a lot of the credit for those teams, and justifiably so in a lot of ways. But Luke Kuechly was the leader on defense. He was a phenomenal player, and injuries just kind of derailed his career, forced him to retire early, unfortunately. And I do kind of wonder, like, what the Carolina Panthers would have ended up looking like if Luke Kuechly had been able to keep going for longer, because he just was such a great player, such a hard hitter, interceptions, tackles, he did it all. And he was recognized for that in his resume, and now he's a Hall of Famer, which, also, I don't think there's a photo they took of the Hall of Fame class, and Luke Kuechly's got like this huge smile. I'm not sure he knows how to smile, but he should be smiling because he made it into the Hall of Fame. Finally, we have someone I consider one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Not the greatest quarterback of all time, but one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Not Vance Joseph. Drew Brees. Drew Brees has been eligible for 1 year, and like I said, he was the last one announced last night, and I was like, it was like, it's Kenny Anderson or Drew Brees, because they'd announced Roger Craig already, so I knew they were going into the finalists. And I was like, if Drew Brees does not get elected to the Hall of Fame, there's going to be riots in New Orleans and maybe around the rest of the world. He's played 20 seasons in the NFL. He won 1 Super Bowl. He was the MVP for that Super Bowl. He had 13 Pro Bowls. Second all-time passing, 80,358. Second all-time touchdown passes, 571. Second all-time completions, 7,142. Third in completion percentage at 67.7. He was the Offensive Player of the Year in 2008 and 2011. And like Larry Fitzgerald, he also won the Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2006. Now, the unfortunate part of Drew Brees' career is all those seconds. He was always second, Mr. Second. He got second to, Manning. He got second to Brady. He got second to Rodgers in some MVP races. It seemed like whenever Drew Brees had a career year, had a historic season, he had 5,000 passing yards multiple times, which I don't know the last time we saw a 5,000 passing yards season, but 5,000 passing yards multiple times. So would Peyton Manning. So would Aaron Rodgers. It was just like the dude could not, have his time in the spotlight. And I've seen people kind of talking about how the Bill Belichick thing is kind of, overshadowing Drew Brees getting into the Hall of Fame. And that's unfortunate because Drew Brees truly is a fantastic quarterback. Seems like he's a great human as well. And he deserves his spotlight, but he's never really demanded it. probably one of the only highlights of Purdue football in like the last 25 years as well. So they've got that. I just, I Drew Brees deserves so much more, and I don't know what more you can give him at this point. But his entire career, he was just coming up second, and that was a hard era to compete in for sure. But I just feel kind of bad for him in that way. But he did get that Super Bowl win over the Colts. I remember watching that Super Bowl. My great uncle was a huge Saints fan, and he was about to pass away, and so we were actually rooting for the Colts, or not the Colts, the Saints, to beat the Colts that year, and they did. So my great uncle got to see the Saints win a Super Bowl before he passed away. So great, great for the brand, the Butts brand. Um, but yep, that's your Hall of Fame class. Let me know what you think. Do you think that they should add another? They should have added another player to this team, who or to this class, who would have been again the top three vote getters that didn't get in were Marshall Yanda, Terrell Suggs, and Willie Anderson. So good class, great class. Love this class. I want it to be a little bit bigger. And maybe I still think it would be elite even if you added one of those guys. But here we go. Other big controversy that we saw last night was Matthew Stafford won MVP over Drake May. And Ari Mirov with My Sports Update posted the voting breakdown. Stafford, 24. May, 23. Josh Allen, 2 votes. And then Justin Herbert with a single first place vote. And I saw that this was, I believe, the closest MVP race since 2003, I believe. So it's been a while since we've had a vote this close. And that one Justin Herbert vote is really kind of what stuck out to everyone. I mean, the Josh Allen votes, maybe you could argue against, but I could see why they would vote that way. Justin Herbert, I just don't. Okay, Chris wants Kevin Williams in the Hall of Fame. Okay, is he eligible? He probably is eligible. Those guys all kind of run together. I might be thinking the wrong guy too. Oh yeah, he's definitely eligible. I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Anyway, I don't know who I'm thinking of. Which Vikings defensive tackle am I thinking of? That's not Kevin Williams. The Stafford 24, May 23, Allen 2, and Herbert 1. The thing about the Herbert 1 vote is, again, going back to the Bengals, in 2024, Joe Burrow had a fantastic season. Fantastic. Best season in the league at the time. And we were told he couldn't win MVP because they did not have a playoff record. They did not make it into the playoffs. You can't make it as an MVP without making it in the playoffs. Now, the Chargers did technically make it into the playoffs. They made it in with a wild card berth that they immediately lost to the Patriots. But I believe, it's the Patriots. And Herbert played way worse than Burrow did that season. Like, significantly worse. I think like 1,200 passing yards, double-digit touchdowns difference, and you're giving him 1 vote. Justin Herbert was not an MVP player this year, and that's not even due to entirely being his fault. His entire offensive line got hurt. They were on like their 4th running back. That's not Justin Herbert's fault entirely, but he did not, play the best of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, because we know quarterbacks and MVP is a quarterback award. I don't even know that Justin Herbert was like top 5 this season. I think I'd argue that he wasn't. And so let's eliminate that, Herbert vote, give it to Drake May. You got a tie, and then you got 2 Allen votes down there. The 2 Allen votes could split, and then I think you have to go into second place voting, or maybe they revote. I don't exactly know what the process is of that, but these 3 voters were kind of chickens, in my opinion. And maybe they did firmly believe that, Josh Allen or Justin Herbert should be the MVP. But there's no way that they firmly believed either one of those guys was going to win. And this isn't I'm not knocking Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. I think they're both great quarterbacks. But everyone and their mother knew that the MVP race was between Matthew Stafford and Drake May. If you are a sports reporter or someone in this circle that has a vote, you definitely knew that Matthew Stafford and Drake May were in the MVP race. And these guys were just trying to be different and special, and maybe, throw a wrench in the cog. I do think Matthew Stafford ultimately earned it, and we're going to talk about why that is here in a second. But this is like a few years ago, I read the Baseball Hall of Fame, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't know what it's exactly called, but when Ken Griffey Jr. got in, he was 1 vote, I believe, away from being unanimous, and the sports reporter that voted against him said that the reason he didn't vote for Ken Griffey Jr. is because he didn't think anyone should get in unanimously. What? Why? Why not? Who cares? Ken Griffey Jr. was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Even I know that, and I'm not that far into baseball. And he got into the Hall of Fame. What's it matter if it was unanimous or not? It's cool if it's unanimous. He deserved it if it's unanimous. Don't just, vote out of spite. We saw that with Belichick. We're seeing that. I don't even know what the voting here was, but that Herbert vote was just weird. Shout out Justin Herbert, but I don't think he deserved that vote this year. Let's look at Stafford and May's stats. So Stafford is on the left. May is on the right. Stafford had 4,707 passing yards. He led the league. 46 touchdowns, led the league, 8 interceptions, and then he had a 65% completion rate with a long of 88 yards. As for Drake May, he had about roughly 400 yards less, 4,394 passing yards. He had 15 touchdowns less, 31. He had the same amount of interceptions, and he actually did have a better completion percentage, leading the league at 72%, which is phenomenal completion percentage. Absolutely amazing on a long pass of 72 yards. And I see the argument that, Matthew Stafford has more people around him. Matthew Stafford has Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford has Devontae Adams. I see Patriots fans making that argument. But then I also see Patriots fans turning around and saying, hey, we've got a bunch of great players. We've got Hunter Henry. We've got Stephon Diggs. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Either Drake May is working with nothing or he's got really good players on his team. And, of course, Puka Nacua, I would say, is better than Stephon Diggs now. Kyren Williams. I saw people trying to argue Kyren Williams was a top 3 running back. That just isn't true. I like Kyren Williams, but he didn't have a great season. Travion Henderson may even have, and the Travion Henderson, Demario Douglas, Ramondre Stevenson, like 3-headed monster may actually be better than the Kyren Williams, Blake Corum tandem. I think it probably is, especially in terms of pass catching. And I get it. I get you want to apply everything to context. But I think when you look at them side by side, Matthew Stafford objectively had a better season. There's not really any notable stat in the regular season where Stafford kind of falls off, which, maybe that completion percentage, but that still 65% complete is still awesome. That's still really good. And when you consider that Matthew Stafford was also playing against NFC East teams or NFC West teams, and Drake May was playing against AFC East teams, the Dolphins, the Bills, which kind of fell apart there at the end, the Jets. Stafford arguably had I would say he actually definitely had more competition that he was going up against, and he put up a better stat line. And yes, he didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but it's not a regular season award, so who cares about that when we come to this voting? So I think Matthew Stafford won this award fair and square. Drake May definitely had a phenomenal season. It just didn't work out for him. And that's kind of how it goes. And Drake May is going to be in contention for MVPs for many seasons to come. He should be. He's got the Patriots brand behind him. He's a good quarterback in a great class. I think Drake May's got a lot of good to look forward to in his career, and we'll see what happens on Sunday if he adds to that as well. Speaking of Sunday, let's talk about our keys to win the game. So, first of all, those in the comment section, drop who you think is going to win on Sunday. Who wins Super Bowl 60? Is it the Seattle Seahawks led by Sam Darnold or the New England Patriots led by Drake May coming off of runner-up for MVP? Will he win Super Bowl MVP instead? So first of all, Seattle. Seattle had the harder path to the Super Bowl in the playoffs, but their offense may be limited by the Patriots defense that has allowed just 26 points in the playoffs. That's the fewest since the 2000 Ravens in a 3-game span. And with context, the Patriots did play some poor teams, playoff Justin Herbert. CJ Stroud struggled against the defense and had multiple turnovers. He just did not look good. And then, of course, they played a backup quarterback with the Broncos. But all that being considered, the Patriots still have only allowed 209.7 yards per game in the playoffs. The Seahawks have allowed 33 points in their 2 games, 27 of which were to the Rams. In the regular season, they only allowed 17.2 points per game, and they allowed 356.7 yards per game in the playoffs. And again, that Rams game really kind of hurts their average. They allowed 479 yards against the Rams, but only 236 against the 49ers. So, keys to victory here. We've got Darnold needs to stay calm. And this is part of it right here, what Chris said. He thinks that Darnold will throw at least 1 interception. So in the regular season, Sam Darnold's turnover-worthy play percentage, according to PFF, was 3.4%. It dropped to 1.6% in the playoffs and 0% when pressured. Now, Sam Darnold is apparently, he's gotten better against the pressure, but he is notably worse when it comes to pressure when he gets blitzed. We remember this from the NFC North game against the NFC Conference Championship against their NFC North rival, the Lions. They just kind of fell apart in that game, and that wasn't even the conference championship last year, was it? But you know what I'm saying. When they played the Lions just blitzed, and the Vikings fell apart because Sam Darnold's offense was not great because he was getting blitzed. Doesn't play well under pressure. He's done a lot better in the playoffs. However, I still think that the Patriots are going to, bring the house, try to get him scared, and that may, cause some problems. We also need to make Drake May throw fast and contain him. So May has struggled in the postseason with big time throws and avoiding sacks. The Seahawks, on the other hand, have allowed 14 explosive passes on 7 deep attempts in 2 playoff games. May has scrambled 9 times for 125 yards and 6 first downs. So that means you need to keep Drake May in the pocket. You can't let him get out. You can't let those third downs turn into first downs because Drake May was able to use his legs. Help your defense. Make Drake May force some passes that he doesn't want to. This Patriots offense likes to have long developing plays, likes to give Drake May time in the pocket. Don't give Drake May that time in the pocket. And the Seahawks have the 3rd most quick pressures with 243 in the NFL. They're going to need to capitalize on that, because if Drake May is allowed to start making these explosive plays to Booty or Diggs, then you're going to start having some issues. And this is a team that you cannot both these teams really are going to need to capitalize on all of their possessions and aren't going to be able to waste any time on either side of the ball. Limit the Patriots' yards after catch. Patriots are 13th in yards after catch per reception at 5.2 in the regular season. In the playoffs, it climbed to 6.4, which, while they did play some weak offenses, they played some very good defenses. The Texans defense, they played the Broncos defense. So those are phenomenal defenses and a decent one with the LA Chargers. So I'm going to try to limit that. And you may be saying, well, the Seahawks defense is really good too. Yeah, they are. They're phenomenal. Only 17 points allowed per game. However, they do have the 12th most missed tackles in the NFL with 162 and the most against the pass at 102. So 102 of their missed tackles came against the pass. They've only had 14 in the playoffs, though, but that's 7 per game. And again, this is going to be a situation where you're not going to have time to come back and make up for any mistakes. You're going to have to play perfect in order to win this game because both of these teams are coached very well, and the schematics just don't allow for any mistakes. Get the ball to JSN on 1v1. So this seems obvious, but the JSN opportunities for one-on-one just aren't going to be there a ton. The Patriots have allowed just 9 explosive plays in 3 playoff games. That means you're probably going to get 3 chances, roughly, to get the ball to JSN, let him go deep, wide open. Sam Darnold's going to have to complete on all 3 of those, or at least 2 of those 3, in order to, kind of spread that defense out or even capitalize and get points. It's going to be very rare that JSN does not have double coverage, and you're going to have to rely on Cooper Kupp and some of your other guys more often, maybe Jake Bobo. But I think you have to capitalize. And that's going to be the key for both sides of the ball here. You're going to have to capitalize on what the defense gives you and not try to do anything that they don't. But at the same time, you do have to eventually break out and, get those explosive plays, get those deep balls going. Now, let's look at the other side of the ball. The New England Patriots, keys to victory. So we got Milton Williams there. I think Milton Williams is going to be a big part of this. We talked about that here. He's going to need to get some pressures on Sam Darnold. They've signed him in free agency, signed him to a big contract, and this is why. He's a great pass rusher. Make Sam Darnold nervous. Make him make some mistakes. Make him throw that one interception that Chris talked about there in the comments. That could literally be the make or break here. I could see this being a very low scoring game, defensive battle that maybe bores some casual fans, but at the same time, I think it could be fun. So, like we said, Drake May has struggled in the postseason with big time throws. And when you pressure him and make him make some quick throws, you're going to, get him nervous. He's still a second-year quarterback, even coming off of a phenomenal season. I think you have to lean on the run game. You have to lean on Travion Henderson, even if you're getting them the ball through a pass. So Ramondre Stevenson has averaged 14.1 yards after catch per reception. Demario Douglas has averaged 11 yards after catch per reception. So even if you are getting the ball to them through a pass, they can get stuff done. Don't make Drake May do everything. Let the run game kind of do its job. Maybe schedule some quarterback runs in there as well, since that's where Drake May has done well in the playoffs. That's where we've seen him play well with his legs. Like we said, 125 yards for 6 first downs this playoffs. Let's see what we got here. The Pats would like to use Stevenson and open up the pass. Seahawks were best in the NFC and haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher since October of 24. James Cook had 111. I know that they – okay. So what I'm saying is that the Patriots need to not make Drake May do everything in the passing game. I'm not saying that they're going to win solely on the run game. This isn't going to be like 80% run. I just don't want the Patriots to come out and say, we have the runner-up MVP, Drake May. He's going to throw 50 times and we're going to win this game, because I don't think that will happen. I think they need to give Drake May the ability to open up the ball. And like I said, you can get these running backs the ball through the passing game if you want to. You don't have to do handoffs every time, but you have to lean on behind, I would say, screen passes, just pitches, just do something to get these guys the ball and allow Drake May to use his legs, because Drake May also has not done well in passing against these good defenses. So at some point, you have to make the call. Are you making the call that Drake May is going to suddenly do really good against a really good defense in the postseason, even though he struggled against the last three defenses? He played okay, but he didn't play Drake May regular season level. So I that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm not saying they need to, Marshawn Lynch hand the ball off every play or something, or Derrick Henry, but they definitely need to lean on it a little bit, I think. How much so, that's to be determined, I guess. Um, okay, so capitalize on deep ball chances. We talked about that a little bit. The Seahawks just don't allow deep ball passes. And so this is kind of like the JSN thing. They're going to need to capitalize on the few opportunities that they get to Kayshon Boutte, to Stephon Diggs. Allow for that defense to get spread out in the passing game so that it does open up the run game a little bit. This is going to be a chess match defensive game, I think. You got Mike Vrabel, defensive guy. You've got Mike McDonald, defensive guy. So Clint Kubiak, fantastic offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. He's going to have his job full. And a big part of that is going to be making sure that the Seahawks don't get into 3rd and long. If the Patriots are able to force 3rd and long, then they will be in really, really good, a really, really good spot. Now, the Seahawks, when they are at 3rd and 6 or less, they convert 64.4% of the time. However, if you add just 1 yard to that for 3rd and 7 or above, they only convert 21.6% of the time. That is the 4th worst in the NFL. So Sam Darnold is not able to regularly complete those 3rd and 7 passes to get the first down. Whereas Drake May has actually been really good at getting those first downs with his legs. Sam Darnold has not been able to do that unless it's a short. So if the Patriots are able to, get a sack on 2nd down, or they're able to get a quick pressure, tackle for loss, something like that, and force 3rd and 7 or above, then that will put them in a really good place to stop this really good Seahawks offense that isn't great at moving the sticks at that point. So that is something they need to focus on for the New England Patriots. And then, of course, we're going to pressure Darnold a lot, get him into those situations. I said keep Darnold safe. Nope, we're on the Patriots side. We're quick pressuring him, blitzing, maybe bringing in a linebacker off the edge to blitz him. Just keep him nervous, keep him looking around, because that's where he kind of the seeing ghosts thing. He hasn't seen ghosts in a while, but will he see them again against the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco? It's possible. Both these teams have really good defenses and have decent offenses. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I would say it's probably going to be like 14-21. And I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks can pull this out. 21-14 would be my guesstimate. Let me know what you think the final score of the Super Bowl will be and who will win down below. And before we head out, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has followed along this season. We're going to continue to bring you all the best NFL news coverage that we can. Chus, super busy. Stan, super busy. We've got some big stuff planned for the World Cup, though, too. The World Cup's coming up. Eventually, I want No Buts About It media to be covering all sorts of sports, NASCAR, NBA, WNBA, baseball, whatever you guys are interested in. And the World Cup coming this summer, we're going to do some special stuff since that's going to be big. And we appreciate just all of you for supporting us, because there are just some days where I'm like, I don't really want to make a video, or I don't want to post this or that. And, seeing the subscribers, seeing the people who trust us, rely on us to bring them news and sports entertainment, it means a lot, and it really helps us out. Helps me out so much. So I just thank you. And yeah, let me know who you think's going to win the Super Bowl. We'll continue to do everything. Thank you, Chris, as always. Um, remember, Vikings beat the Bengals. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you beat Jake Browning. Congrats. Jake Browning beat you once too. Anyway, yeah, just I wanted to say that. Thank you as the season comes to an end, and we'll get into free agency, and hopefully I'll be able to do more draft videos. I want to do more draft videos, and I just get busy every year because this is just a part-time thing. But I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for joining. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. It takes you like less than 5 seconds, but it helps us out so much. Until next time, go do something nice for someone.